I'll do that today. It's spinning, spinning, spinning. Yes, get out your papers and pencils, just like I saw Emmy do. Hooray! And I think Isha has already. Yep, I saw a pen in her hand. Very good. Very good. Celine's fingers might be too cold to write because, it's cold out. Hopefully she has gloves on. All right, so the Chanapas. Oh, these are so cool. These are my favorite part about it. So they build these floating gardens because you have a problem. When you have a city in the middle of a lake, typically people plant on ground. Last time I went outside and she's like, here's my pond. Let's throw some seeds in, see what happens. Nothing happened. The seeds, they drowned. So just don't try it because it's not going to work. I mean, you might be able to plant some water lilies and stuff, but, most plants don't just go in water. So they have an interesting predicament. So first off, remember, this is like a swamp. So it's like ground with like water. And so they dug out some canals with it. And then they take the mud that they built with these canals and then they're like, mud party. No, they didn't throw mud at each other. They instead go and put it on, they weave these reed mats. Now, reeds, just like how we had our papyrus in Egypt, they're like those long kind of plants things. Savona actually gave me like a reed kind of plant style thing a year ago, and it's still going strong. I have to cut it back all the time. And it's where you have the long leaves and you weave them together. And they basically wound up making these rafts. And they tied them to trees, and then you have this floating garden, and they put the mud on top of that, so you had this super duper awesome soil. Because remember, we've learned that mud is often silt, and silt, of course, is all of like the plant like debris that is decomposed. It's the fishy poop, and the fishy bodies that have decomposed, all that. So it's really, really fertile, really, really awesome. They put that on the top, they grow their crops. But here's what's even super cool. They would then go and like Aiden would go after the plants were germinating, which I think you guys know that word from science, right? When they start sprouting and stuff like that. Have you talked about that yet? Blank faces. Okay, no, fine. Well, you'll probably talk about like germination and stuff like that. I don't know exactly when Mr. LaRose does that, but they go and they might have done that actually last year when it was like springtime. Oops. Okay. Anyways, so they take those little germinated parts and they put them on like canoes that are right by, and then they have that whole land again empty, the Chanapa, and then they plant another set of crops, and so they wind up getting like 3 or 4 sets of crops in the same area, whereas like regular farmer Campbell, she can grow 1 set of crops at the time. So they grow a tremendous amount of food very quickly. We talked yesterday about how Tenochtitlan had a population of like 250,000 people, and that is a ton of people for back then because food technology production back then was not so great. And we've talked about this circle of awesome before, where more food equals more people, and of course then you have more smart people, and those smart people make more inventions and discoveries. And so this is one of the reasons why the Aztecs are going to become so stinking popular and powerful. You don't have to necessarily write how that. You need to have somewhat of an idea that they're making these floating gardens by putting mud on the thing, but you don't have to have it word for word on there. The fact that you're asking me like after I've already talked about this slide for a while is a little bit frustrating because like, what if I said yes? Then what? We have to sit here for like 10,000 years while you copy it all. So good thing I'm being nice to you, huh? And I don't really care what they grew. I'm never gonna be like, please tell me 5 crops the Aztecs, because what does it matter? Maize, aka corn, is going to be very popular, but so were tomatoes, or if you're feeling fancy, tomatoes. But chili peppers, beans, all that good stuff with that. Good, I got a smirk at least with my ridiculousness. Love it. And here's the thing, though. Chanapas are so awesome, they still use them today. Yes, that's right. Because why abandon something great? They don't, because it's really great for growing food. So let's check it out. Here are some people working with Chanapas. Here we're standing on a Chanapa, and standing on this, you're like, wow, it looks like regular land. Except if you go over there, you're like, oh, there's water all around there. And probably, I imagine, I have not walked on a Chanapa. If any of you have, please let me know. But I imagine like you could probably feel like that the ground isn't like super solid, like that it would probably feel more like bridgy Maybe a little squish because you got water right under it. Here's another aspect of the Chanapas. I mean, it's just so wild that like right, on the bottom of this, you'd be like, oh, it's water. Like you take a canoe to get there. It's so cool, and they're so effective. Now, we have plenty of time to get into class systems, I believe. So we should probably do that. Although, let me double check to make sure because I'm still getting accustomed to this brand spanking new schedule. Um, and of course, I clicked on the class that doesn't have it. Oh, yeah, I have you to 10:09. We can talk a little bit about social classes before I cut you loose to do your assignment. So, social class system. Now, the big thing about the Aztecs, just like we talk about in our song, are promotions based on merit. This is just like the Mongols. Saya, because she's a hard worker and smart, goes higher up in the social class system. It does not matter that Blake is a princess. Blake has to be awesome to be able to stay up high. And it's pretty cool how the Aztecs were this. And there are going to be 5 main social classes. And so basically, like, it doesn't matter who your parents are. Madeline, her parents might be peasants, but she could become a priestess. Sahil might be a peasant, but because he's so brave and awesome in battle, he might wind up becoming a general. So, of course, we start at the top with the ruler. Now, this is not a hereditary based monarchy. It's not just because your daddy was king that you get to be king. What's interesting with that, though, is because they did believe that the Aztec emperors were semi-divine, meaning more than a man, part God. So it's kind of interesting how they obtain that, you know, deification when they arise to the throne. Now, just because you are emperor, though, this is not like an absolute monarchy where the emperor has complete total power over everything himself. He has advisors that help him, and the advisors actually are the ones that choose the next emperor. So people that are considered wise, they're the ones who pick the emperor after, not the emperor saying, "And my heir will be Savona." Doesn't happen that way. Now, we have government officials, priests, military leaders after that. Now, these guys are going to be a kind of nobility. They will. And they are going to be going and supporting the emperor, but it's not necessarily based on heredity, meaning it's not based on who your mommy and daddy was. This was based on, are you a hard worker? Are you smart? Do you do good jobs? So Charity would easily be able to rise through the ranks no matter who her parents were. And jobs they would do would be things like collecting tribute, ruling the cities, being judges. We're going to see the priesthood is going to have tremendous power and influence. All right. The priesthood is going to be super strong because they're going to be looking to the gods for guidance for pretty much everything. Priests are going to run schools. We're going to see that girls have a lot more rights in Aztec society than other traditional societies at this time. Girls could be priestesses, and like we said, the priesthood is going to have tremendous influence and power. And they're gonna have schools and everything. It's pretty cool. And let's see, with the amount of time left, I think we should probably pause at this juncture so that you're able to have sufficient time to be able to get your work done for the class, because I don't want you guys having like a million extra hours of homework. I want you to be able to, associate with your friends and family and, do good stuff. So we're going to pause here for our notes. I'm actually going to remember to stop the recording. My last class I recorded